I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I get to look into history of Southern Oregon, Northern California, and the people who've made history here. And Doug DeVine has certainly done that. He's done deep sea diving, is that right? How do you get there from here? I mean, the state of Jefferson doesn't have much deep water.
Well, no, it's most of our work was above. We did get wet a couple times, but the majority of it was out of water.
And he's talking about the Hunley, and there's so many fascinating things. I said, what is this picture here of the Hunley, which is a submarine that came from the Civil War?
Yes, indeed, sunk in 1864 in Charleston Harbor with loss of all hands on board.
Now, what's this? This doesn't look like any undersea thing.
Well, no, actually, it's pretty difficult to work on it when it's still in the ocean. So it was raised by a group called Oceaneering, which does most of the underwater recovery. They did Flight 800 and all the major undersea projects.
Is this kind of a Jacques Cousteau thing that we're talking?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, I love that show.
So it was recovered, and the U.S. Navy, because it is a military artifact, donated a building in a decommissioned naval base in North Charleston, South Carolina. And there was a tank that was produced because it was underwater for 136 years and in pristine condition. So the rule is don't change anything. And so it was put into this basically a tank the size of a swimming pool.
Yeah, it would have to be a big tank because this vehicle is what?
Oh no, it's 36. I mean, it's not. It's a very, very small craft. The actual dimensions, well, you can see I'm sitting in it right there, and it is about 3.
Is this you?
Yes, that's me.
You mean you have to sit in that position?
3 foot wide by about 4 foot tall. So. And
your purpose of you sitting there is
so that you could power it by human-powered crank, and there was seven crankers on board and 1 captain.
Just like a propeller.
Yep, and it was actually hooked to a gear drive, and they would had dive planes, and Lieutenant Dixon could make it dive and surface, and they had 2 open ballasts, one in the forward position and one in the aft position. They would flood those to level it out. Well,
now, where can I learn more about this? Is there a website?
There actually is. It's www.hunley.org.
It's not the only thing that you've worked on, but it is the one I learned about on the Sunday morning show. So, of course, I had to go hunting for the Hunley hunter.
The Hunley hunter.
But I found so much more than Hunley.
Well, yes, because of our involvement with National Geographic and the Smithsonian, and we kind of got into a little clique of people that really understood archaeology and the various very, very specific things that have to do with craft that have been submerged and how to treat them. So, matter of fact, we are still working on the Hunley. We'll be back there again in March, which is this month, to do some more of the interior.
We're just lucky to have you here.
Continuing on.
So there's a star on Medford that says, if you want to find sunken treasure,
it's come to Medford. So what happened was we were called by a group that was conserving the USS Monitor, the turret of the Monitor that had a strange thing again, had 7 guys inside the turret when it went down, and the Monitor actually flipped upside down and the turret came off, and they were firing at the Merrimack at basically point blank range with cannons. And it must have been, I mean, you can look at the inside of the thing. It's just unbelievable how those guys could take the noise and the explosive powder. And so what they wanted to do was recreate it. And so what we did was, there's the engine of the Monitor that we scanned and recorded. And again, this is all for archiving and preserving so that...
Okay, when's the Monitor built? Where is it built? And why is it so important?
Well, the Monitor was one of the first ironclad battleships. These were all new technologies. It had like a tank turret on it. And again, in the mid 1800s, late 1800s, it's some really, really amazing technology.
High tech.
Very high tech at that time.
Well, now this one is made of iron.
And oh yeah, they were all iron, all boiler iron. Yeah.
Okay.
No steel yet.
Okay, now when this is this one lifted from the...
No, this one they could not. The only thing they could recover was the turret.
Okay, where is it? I mean,
it is still off the East Coast. I mean, what's left of it? It's going away, and that's our main goal, is to conserve.
To get there,
to get there, save it for what it is, which is imperative, because this is history that is in fact going away.
Because of the sand and the sea and the salt
and time.
And time.
And time.
So this was built in what? 18 and...
You know, I believe it was converted. I don't know when the actual production date was. It was modified because that's when they started doing all the ironcladding. It's funny, on the Hunley, when we found in the bottom of the Hunley, we found these big iron blocks, and we thought, what the heck are they? And they all had holes drilled in them. And we realized that the Hunley had no way to ballast itself port and starboard. So what they would do, if you were a little person, they would hand you an iron block,
and you'd put it,
and you would put it by you to help balance you out. And the funny thing,
if you're a lightweight,
yeah, then you had lots of iron around you. And the funny thing was that those blocks were actually historic pieces, because they were pieces of the iron that they had cladded the Monitor and the Merrimack with. Everybody, all the shipbuilders, they had these pieces when they did the iron cladding.
Leftover scrap.
So, yep, they used the scrap to ballast the Hunley. So it was, again, a real small community.
So kind of like if I had weights in a gym.
Yep.
And
you were tilting this way, put some weights on that side, make it go level.
My brother had a little Crosley car, and so we'd have to move, gonna turn, so we'd go the other
Lean
direction.
on the other way.
You've got, I mean, what was this like for you? What did you do, physically, you personally do?
Basically, it was just, scanning. I mean, there was not a...
You got on an airplane in Medford and went to where?
That site.
Or do we talk about that?
No, that's...
Someplace on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And you went there with your...
Scanners and just basically recorded. And what they wanted to do was they want to disassemble it, and they just want to make sure that when they disassemble it, they can assemble it again in proper fashion.
Okay.
Again, because there's no plans or prints.
So we can't talk about, I mean, you don't know the people in this one you did in the Hunley.
No, this, the Monitor is in process, and there's very little, no.
I mean, because it was open to water.
Yeah.
Open to
and everybody bailed out. There was some guys that were killed when it went down, but yeah, it didn't have the impact that the Hunley had at all.
Well, now.
But the next one.
The next one.
Yeah, this one's pretty amazing. As far as everyone knows, there was the Hunley, which we found, or Clive Cussler found, and we've recovered. The Alligator, which will probably know, that was towed, and it was a buoyant sub, and that's floated off who knows where. But in 2004, and I'm terrible on dates, but or 2005, I'm sorry, we had, again with our association with all of the agencies, we met a gentleman out of Vancouver, British Columbia, by the name of James Delgado, and he is the curator or manager of the Vancouver Maritime Museum. And Jim called me up and he said, hey, I've been called to go to Panama, that there was supposedly a Japanese mini-sub that was sent to Panama, Second World War, to take out the Panama Canal and prevent the Allied forces from coming through. They were going to torpedo the Panama Canal. So he said, would you like to go look for it?
Oh, so would you like candy, little kids?
So I thought, well, okay. So we went down in November to Panama and flew down there, and we took all our equipment because we had no idea what we were going to find. And got to Panama. We found a boat that was pretty interesting because it was about a 14-hour ride to get out to Isla San Telmo. One of our guys that does, one of our top scanning guys, Carlos Velasquez, and I went down. And
now, is this a local fella too from what you can find in Jackson County?
Carlos, you bet, been around forever. His dad works for the BLM.
Okay.
We went on this 14-hour boat ride, which was actually pretty exciting in itself, to this island called Isla San Telmo, and which is in the Pearl Archipelago of Panama. What we found there was very definitely not a Japanese submarine. The natives had said they had seen this boat that was visible, or this craft that was visible during low tide. In the Bay of Panama, the tide swings are 12 feet, so it's a tremendous tide swing. And the craft was typically underwater. And when we saw it, we thought, what the heck is this thing? Because it's very evident it was not a Japanese mini-sub. It was actually, we figured about 56 tons, so it's a huge, huge craft. It had a pressure hull around it. It had a crew compartment inside. The easiest way we could access it was, in fact, with tank scuba gear, because when it was exposed, there was too much wave action, and it was like working around a jagged tin can. It was really pretty dangerous. So we elected to do the majority of the work at high tide. I believe that it is currently, I know that we did some filming because we do get paid for doing this stuff. And it is on a, it's made by, the filming was done by National Geographic's International and EcoNova out of Nova Scotia. And it's being showed internationally, but for some reason they've not shown it in the US yet.
Well, but we do have some of the film.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have it naturally.
In the briefcase, and fortunately, now, this is the ship you went out on?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, because there were these islands are deserted. There are no inhabitants. So we basically used tents and backpacked, and it was all. Now
this is the low tide. That's actually seeing the vehicle.
Seeing the craft.
But it has nothing to do with Japanese submarines.
No, not at all.
That sort of thing. It's just. That was the story.
Right. So what we did was it triggered a bit of research. So Jim Delgado, being the curator of the Vancouver Maritime Museum, has a lot of political contact with the National Archives. So he immediately starts, my phone was the only phone that worked. It was an old analog phone, and we could actually, from Panama, get out. And so we said, hey, we found something here. And so they looked in the archives, and they actually found that it was a submarine that was built in the East River of New York City in 1865 by a gentleman by the name of Julius Kroll.
So there is history about every
one, yeah. And Julius Kroll, matter of fact, was a city engineer for the city of New York, and he built a fire tower in Manhattan that is still there. They would watch for fires.
So he knew technology.
Yep. And what he did was he built the Submarine Explorer, which we found that's what its name was. It's the Submarine Explorer.
Okay.
Somewhere down there. And it was built as a military craft. And it was very unique because it was a pressure hull with a crew compartment inside. But the unique ability of the Submarine Explorer was that it had bomb bay doors that could open. So they could use it like a diving bell. They could actually dive down to the ocean bottom, open the doors, and with hard hats, they could step out on the ocean floor and they could remove mines or they could mine ships.
Folks, I thought this was new technology, and we're talking...
No, 1865. The problem was 1865, Civil War was over. So by the time he got it done, there was no war, which is unfortunate because if it had seen battle, it would put it in a different category.
Oh.
So here's a submarine that was built for warfare, never saw warfare, and Julius Kroll, being a bit entrepreneurial, said, I've got to do something with it. I can't sell it to the Navy. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll sell it to the Pacific Pearl Company, which was a New York-based pearl company. Now, in Panama, the Bay of Panama is the pearl capital of the world. I mean, that's where...
Little beautiful pearls.
Beautiful pearls. That's basically where Liz Taylor owns the largest pearl ever found. It's called the Wanderer, and that was found on Isla San Telmo, right where we found the Submarine Explorer. So what his idea was to tow it from New York down the East Coast, put it on the rail, because there was no Panama Canal then, and rail it across to the Bay of Panama, and have their pearl divers go to areas of pearl diving that were inaccessible, because a free diver could not dive to 100 feet, just couldn't do it. So they would take the Submarine Explorer and go down to the bottom of the ocean floor in the bay, open the doors and just pick up the oysters, hopefully holding pearls. And
wow.
So all records of it and Julius Kroll, the inventor, were lost in about 1869.
So it didn't reap a whole lot of reward.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There's stories of those pearls.
Oh, yeah, it was a great...
Besides that one giant.
And what happened to the Submarine Explorer was that it apparently, for some reason, and again, these are all, people say, well, what about this? And, well, we don't know. We just discovered this. So it's, we are currently doing research to find out. When we were in Panama, we wanted to find Julius Kroll's grave or what happened. Panama was actually part of Colombia. There was no Panama back then. And so we went to the Panamanian archives, or the Colombian archives, to see if we could research Julius Kroll.
With Spanish translators and all this.
Yes, of course. To find out, we think that he probably died of either yellow fever, or possibly, since they were delving into things that they were not known of. I mean, doing deep diving, you can get the bends, nitrogen narcosis, and I mean all kinds of. And we think he might have killed himself by utilizing the Explorer, going down, pressurizing, coming right back up. Getting the bends, we don't know. We're still looking at. We looked through all of the grave sites where we thought he may have been buried to try and find his grave, but at this point he's lost in history. We've not found him.
Now, were there other people on this?
The only thing we know about, because at first everyone said it didn't exist. That it was, they have one drawing, one picture, a hand drawing of it in the National Archives, but they said they had no idea that it ever. So what we're doing now is we are attempting to, we went down to basically collect all the measurements and data that we could at this point. Unfortunately, it's in Panamanian waters. So we did contact INAC, which is the Panamanian historical group.
Right.
And we tried to explain to them that this was a great American treasure, and they responded with, it's a great Panamanian treasure. So we built it, they used it. Unfortunately, if it had been if it had seen action, it would then be a military, then we would have possession, there would be no question. So last week, basically the first week in March, James Delgado again went down to negotiate for two reasons. One, it's been a year since we were there, and we gave him mapping of the breaches in the forward section that had been caused by wave action, because this is exposed to...
Well, you'd like really to pick it up and take it to Canada. Is that
Well,
right?
actually, we've talked to Warren Lash, who is the head of the Lash Conservation Center, where the Hunley is, and there's a lot of people that say that the Confederates and the people that are in the South are very anti-North even today. The war is still not over.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to Warren Lash, and even though he's about fed up with submarines, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Oh, I'll bet.
And he said, what we suggested was, what a great thing to have the Confederate H.L. Hunley and its Yankee twin in the same facility.
Absolutely.
So we're working on that as right now.
Now, to understand you as a person, let's talk a little bit about you. When you were a kid, did you have erector sets? Did you have, I mean, where did you get your training? What kind of kid? What's mom and dad think of this?
Well, the kind of the neat thing is that everything that Pacific Survey Supply does, 99% of it is no one's ever done it before, which is what we all enjoy doing, all the employees. I mean, we've been around, for 30 years in Southern Oregon. And we as a company, it's just kind of a group of all the guys there we don't want to do what everyone else does. We always look at something different, and we look at things in different ways. And
It's called cutting edge.
well, cutting edge,
Or you're ahead of that.
yeah, I mean, this is way better than working for a living.
And you said the money comes from the museums that want
Yes,
this? Or-
typically we've done some other things, like we've done some work with the Discovery Channel. I think we aired about 60 times last year with Bigfoot investigations. We did Sasquatch Legend Meets Science and some other...
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, that'll be another...
Oh, well, I had to go see Sasquatch down in California.
Yep,
I
Willow
went-
Creek.
Huh?
Willow Creek.
In this town of, they have a statue of it.
That's
And
Willow Creek.
And we just found it to be fascinating, you know. But
Well, we can do that on another tale.
tell me a little about you.
Basically, born in the East Coast in New England. Grew up in Pennsylvania.
With erector sets?
Oh, with
and-
erector sets and chemistry sets and doing all the crazy stuff. And joined the Navy.
Oh, well,
And-
that kind of fits
Yep,
in with
yep.
underwater.
And spent a lot of time Vietnam era, but I was stationed in the Caribbean,
Oh,
so that was really tough.
yeah.
And that's got into diving and stuff like that there.
So that was part of the military training?
Yes, yeah.
You needed that knowledge?
Yes, yeah.
Was that new to you?
Yes.
Okay. So then you moved out of the military and
Went into the metropolitan New York area and joined the rat race, and worked there in with some of the early computer work with Digital Equipment Company up in Maynard, Massachusetts, with Bell Labs, with Wagner Tungesol, a lot of different, all employed by one employer, but they would rent me out to different places doing R&D stuff, research
but
and
you
development.
were kind of a little fish in a big pond?
Yes, and yeah, and I got married, I think it was 1967. My goodness, huh? And had a daughter who now works with me.
Oh,
And I mean, my wife had the daughter, not me, but we both did.
yeah, please.
And figured that, I saw what New York was and New Jersey was just building and building and building. And I said, let's go have some adventure. So I packed up my little Volkswagen Bug and with wife and child and headed across the United States looking for some place that we would like to stay. I mean, we wanted to pick where we wanted to find a home.
Find a nest.
And went to Los Angeles, headed north. I really enjoyed the Big Sur area of Monterey.
Nothing
till I looked at the pricing. I thought even then, that was 35 years ago, it was still too much.
So you got back in the Bug.
And headed north, and being from the east, we're not too bright because there was a sign that said Oregon. And I thought, hey, let's go look at Oregon, not knowing that if I had just gone up 101, I would have ended up in Oregon anyway.
Right.
So I took the Smith River
cut off.
And I said, man, this is pretty. This is, and I figured I was in Oregon. Actually, that was California. But
yeah,
it was good. It went into the Oregon mind. And then I saw a sign that said Jacksonville National Historic Landmark. And I'm figuring, wow, it must look like the Washington Monument. I want to see this big concrete thing. I had no idea what a National Historic Landmark was. So ended up up in the Applegate Valley. Now this was back in 1978, 70, late 70s. Okay. And boy, the Applegate Valley was pristine. It was the springtime. Everything was green. There was no people.
I found home.
I found home, and that's where, and we've been here ever since.
Oh, raising a daughter and having a good time. Yeah. Well, I'll be in the store to meet your daughter.
Well,
I was fascinated. So we can find you in Medford at Pacific Survey Supply.
Right.
And they've got the most interesting things that you'll think came right off of George Washington's pickup truck or whatever he was driving.
We have an old historic collection, yes indeed, that we've gleaned from all of the local surveyors.
Well, I want to thank you so very much for being my guest. And you're coming
Bernie.
back with that other story.
If you'd like.
I'd love it. Thanks for tuning in, and we've never gone this deep before. This is an all-time first.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my guest, and this is Bernie Martin Beck signing off.